And my next guest is joining us just for that reason. Coming up on September 7th, local nonprofit Wake Up Sonoma, you probably heard about them because they were the ones who correctly had their eye on the ball when it came to some strange real estate dealings here in the Valley that now are the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle and more. We don't need to go into that. But Wake Up Sonoma, nonprofit, has their eye on some of these things that make you go, maybe we need to chat about this as a community. And one of the things that they have been spotlighting is something you may or may not have heard anything about. It's called Project 2025. And at Burlingame Hall on September 7th, they will be hosting a panel of experts who are focused on a conversation on the history and the rise of Christian nationalism and the threat of Project 2025 to every American citizen, it says on the website for the event in the description. I am lucky enough that I reached out to the panelists, and they have graciously agreed to come on and just give us a little bit of an overview and a preview to help us understand and prepare for this conversation they'll be having in September. And my first guest is one of those experts, and I believe first time on our airwaves. So please, listeners, welcome Reverend Dr. David Vasquez-Levy. Good morning, Doctor. Thanks for joining us. Do you prefer Reverend or Doctor?
David's good.
David's good. Thank you, David. Thank you, David. I really appreciate you joining us. I know you have different capacities as a doctor, as a reverend. I know that you are the president of the Pacific School of Religion, and maybe you can give a little bit of bio and background of you and the school. But then let's get into this question of why you have your eye on the rise of Christian nationalism and this Project 2025.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you. And well, it's the first. I hope it's not the last.
Nope,
and,
you'll be back.
Certainly glad to be here. And good morning to everyone.
Welcome.
To hear. It's just so happens I'm actually here in Sonoma. Our faculty is on retreat here in Sonoma, but I was way on the. We're up in the hills of it, but it's good to connect this morning. Yes, again, my name is David Vasquez-Levy. I serve as president of Pacific School of Religion. Affectionately we call it PSR. So PSR is in Berkeley, California, and not too far away. In that other great location of burgeoning arts and all kinds of other things.
I love Berkeley so much. It's in my blood. I lived out in Fruitvale. Went to school in Berkeley. A lot of love.
Yeah. Great. Well, PSR was actually just a quick context about the school myself. So it was founded in 1866. So we've been around a bit. A couple of years later, the same founders became what was called the California College, and then eventually became UC Berkeley. So we are on right next to campus there in Berkeley, and I jokingly say, there's a little prep school down the hill that got a little bigger.
Yeah.
So we're progressive, left of left religious institution that has started out again over 150 years, preparing the kind of leaders that were needed at that time, and a lot of that was community in a world that was shifting significantly. The gold rush brought people from everywhere to this area. There was a connection of the cross-continental railroad that connected east to west in the United States and started to reshape this area. And then also we were at that point, this is only 20 years after the Civil War. And so the nation was deeply, deeply divided. And that remains still the case. So what's interesting is today we are in a very similar place. Silicon brings people from all over the world to our little Bay Area beauty. We are connected not by the cross-continental railroad, but by the touch of a screen. But we are also as deeply divided, some would say, as we were at the end of the Civil War. And so when PSR was founded, the intent was to say, we need to wrestle with these questions in this particular context, because what was happening here at that time would soon reshape the nation. So that connects into why I'm interested in this conversation, because we are in a similar time, right? So with those early founders of PSR, who included the same folks who started the Sierra Club, John Muir was very connected to one of our faculty members. We actually, our faculty member, Bade, wrote a lot of memoirs, and that's how we know a lot of his work. So those folks were saying, we need a progressive understanding. What progressive meant 150 years ago is different today. Mm-hmm. But we need an understanding of what's happening around us and in the world, and what was happening in this area require what in our traditions we would call theological reflection, right? That's a big word. Mm-hmm. Basically, it just means we got to think of this in a bigger picture, right? We care deeply about issues, but there are frameworks that influence and shape the way we think about the world. So theological education at its best, theology, religion, they're not always at their best. But at their best, there are these frameworks, these ways of thinking about the large picture. And so those founders thought, given what was happening in this area, we needed to engage locally, contextually around that. That's why I'm interested in it today. Over 150 years later, we are in a similar situation where we have to be paying attention to the large disruptive forces around us and to engage them thoughtfully. Oftentimes you said, Wake Up Sonoma as an organization here in the area has been keeping their eye on conversations that really do need to find their way out. Project 2025 is a project that now, having been sort of lurking in the background, is now back on the New York Times and other places where people are becoming significantly more aware. Having a vice president like J.D. Vance, who wrote the introduction to that document, and now is trying to distance himself from it, but really is, of course, very much behind it. That those are concerns that we need to be able to engage and think about. At PSR, we say, in polite company, you don't talk about sex, religion, or politics. At PSR, we talk about all three of them all the time. We are, last word about our institution, we are a majority people of color community. We are a majority LGBTQ community. And so that shapes who we are and what we do in the world.
So the concern is that, what are your concerns when you look at the document, Project 2025? What are some of the red flags, or where you said, oh, wait, this is where we need to do some of our work, bring some of our theological considerations? What alarms you?
Well, the first thing that I would say is there's the obvious concern I think many people already are beginning to share, right? Which is what is called, the rise of Christian nationalism. So the first concern is saying there is a virulent form of religious fervor that regrettably takes people's passions and commitments and then begins to channel them into destructive elements, right? The idea that we equate nation with a particular religious conviction and tradition, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous within religious communities. In religious communities, you might attempt to understand whatever you think of the big picture, the divine God. The problem is when you begin to believe that your understanding of it is actually, you confuse your understanding of the divine with the divine, right? So that can be a problem within a religious institution, right? Like one person says, my understanding of God is that. It's what's at the root of white nationalism, right? Like the idea that being a white male is the dominant way of being human, the best way to be human, right? Anything other than that is less, either by gender, race, identification. So that's the risk, right? The danger is that one particular perspective experience pretends to be universal. So at the core of any form of extremism, and certainly religious extremism, is when a particular individual or group believe that their understanding is dominant and the only one, right? Now, Christian nationalism is one version. We are seeing the rise of religious nationalism around the world. Whether it is Hindu nationalism, in some of the politics of India, it's happening in, Russia's use of Christianity by Putin, in particular conservative Christianity, is beginning to shape in some really deeply problematic ways. So that's my first concern, right? And that is perhaps more obvious, right? In a way, particularly being out here on the West Coast, we look across the country to the South, to certain areas, and we say, that's the concern, it's over there. Right? Those crazy people. I'm also concerned because it's actually much deeper than that. It's not just over there, right? At the core of we'll often refer to this as the 500-year project, right? Basically, colonial project. It's a project that begins in the 1400s in Europe and convinces themselves that they can, go discover the world and control everything. That this colonial project, was very elaborate. It needed a framework. It had a religious framework, it had a political framework, and then it began to shape an entire centuries of what we are still picking up the pieces from, right? Now, the thing is that is deeply within our nation. That's not just over there. This colonial settler mindset is very deeply embedded, even in our very progressive institutions. So what concerns me are two particular areas around that, right? Not what's over there, but what's even in a very blue progressive, however you want to describe yourself for this area, right? Is the fact that even in our beautiful progressive communities in California, for example, the number of walls that have gone up in the last 20 years is amazing. The number of residential communities that are getting enclosed. And the reason that this matters is because, again, we are creating boundaries. Part of what's at the core of this colonial project was the idea that here's a boundary and we own it, right? That settler colonialism, right? And we don't want anything to violate that and come across it, right? So what's emerging among much of our nation is this concern about the threat of the floor outside, whether it's foreigners coming through our borders seeking either opportunities or safety. That's the extreme version. And some of us be like, oh no, let's open the doors, let's be that. But it's happening all over the place, right? The second one is that we begin almost to look at religious ideology as the problem in and of itself. And then begin to think, really, if we just got rid of religion, we'd be fine. So my concern is that that's what we would understand. The reality is religion is not going anywhere. As much as we have predicted the demise of religion, the reality of this rise of nationalisms is because people care deeply about belief and conviction. And many progressive institutions and communities have failed to understand the power of religion or been unwilling to engage it. So my concern, out of a very progressive religious institution that works with a wide range of religious traditions, is to say we need to talk about religion seriously. We need to take it seriously. We need to do it critically, but also appreciatively. The absence of that conversation means that in 2016, you have all these candidates from the Democratic side of the House who actually went to church or participated religiously or at least identified in a religious tradition. But the one holding the Bible is on the other side, right? Literally, like on the photo op, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So we create a vacuum by not engaging it thoughtfully, And so my invitation, my hope is that our conversations will do that. At PSR, we are committed this fall, particularly because it matters to our very well-being. We're doing a number of series and conversations around religion, artificial intelligence, around democracy. These things matter for us to understand the frameworks behind it.
That's an amazing introduction. So much to unpack there, and to explore and to workshop, which sounds like exactly what you do over there at the school. I'm very much looking forward to you coming to visit us and chat more. I want to remind folks that if anything that David has shared today raises questions in you, raises concern in you, confusion, and you feel like you want to address it more, go deeper. Number one, I will be chatting with more of the panelists who are going to be joining this event coming up in September, but also you might want to just make sure you come to the event. So if you're interested, you can go to Wake Up Sonoma's website and get more ticket information there. It is called Project 2025 and the Threat of Christian Nationalism. That is the panel's topic of discussion. It's a group of leading experts like David who spend their days and nights thinking and musing and engaging the community about these topics and taking on what can be challenging conversations. They need to be slow conversations too, David. Sometimes we're moving so fast, and even today we only have our 15 minutes. But a lot of these conversations, they take some time. They take some openness. They take some patience. they can be a big fish to try to hold, and they're really wiggly, and they want to jump out of your arms real fast. But reminding everyone, September 7th is the event, and Reverend Dr. David Vasquez-Levy will be there as one of the panelists to go deeper into these subjects. Any last word, David?
Yeah, definitely. Like appreciation for the opportunity to be together. Echo the invitation to join us for that event on the website from Wake Up Sonoma. You can also find links to the website for Pacific School of Religion. That's just psr.edu. For that slower, more engaged, longer-term conversation, please, we again are committed this fall to really, it's a critical time. It's a really important time for our nation, for our world. And so we are wanting to kind of bring our best thinking from all kinds of perspectives into that. And so encourage you to check that out, see what kind of opportunities there may be if this is something that interests you. And I guess the word is get interested.
Yeah, that's it. That's good.
This is not about just what's going on over there. It's really about how it impacts us all.
It's right here. It's
and
right
I hope
now.
us too. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that we can move beyond just the fear of what may be happening and coming to the agency of how we might imagine it, how do we participate, how do we engage. And that's ultimately the functions of our democracy, right? Is how do we participate in creating the kind of world we all want to live in. So thanks.
I love that you use that word agency, because I know a lot of people feel like it can be futile to
yes.
But we all need to have a sense that even getting together, talking, and exploring the topic is starting to mobilize our agency. Coming together as a community and asking some good questions. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, is there an email that you would like to share if they wanted to ask you a question specifically?
Yeah, if you can remember my role in the institution, president at psr.edu. That's it. So president at psr.edu, and that's P as in Paul, S as in Sam, and R as in Rachel. How about that?
Beautiful. I really appreciate your time today, and look forward to you coming to visit our little town. To you and the team, have a great retreat.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.